Classification, please pay attention to this picture. On the left side is a long alveolar, and the green little balls are oxygens. It gets into our alveolar where there is one cross. If there's something happened at the very beginning for the oxygen to get into the alveolar, that type of hypoxia is called hypotonic. The next step is the diffusion from, or the air exchange between the blood vessel and alveolar. That if something happened over there to cause hypoxia is called hypotonic, still hypotonic. That's one type of hypoxia. And let's go further. When the oxygen gets into the blood vessel, it'll combine with hemoglobin, which we use the oval-shaped red pattern, stands for hemoglobin. If something happened there, either it's the quality or the quantity of hemoglobin, it's hemic hypoxia. The normal flow of blood is the power to take the oxygenated hemoglobin to the tissues. If the blood does not flow properly, the tissue will be short of oxygen. It's hypoxia. That's circulatory hypoxia. For example, heart failure. Heart failure will lead to this type of hypoxia. Then at the end, the green one is a cell which needs oxygen. When the oxygen transported to the cell does not have the ability to use oxygen. That type of oxygen hypoxia is called histogenous hypoxia. In general, the left side, three types, hypotonic, hemic, circulatory, their oxygen supply decrease, hypoxia. And the right one is oxygen utilization decrease, hypoxia. This is a classification and along with the etiology. Classification and etiology I've mentioned: hypotonic, hemic, circulatory, and histogenic. They also have other names. Hypotonic is hypoxic hypoxia, and hemic hypoxia is isotonic hypoxia. Circulatory one is called hypokinic hypoxia, and histogenous one is histotoxic hypoxia. Normally when the cell itself is poisonous or have contact with toxic materials, the mitochondria cannot process oxygen properly, or in other words, it's internal respiration. Then the cell cannot make good use of the oxygen that has been transported to them, which is histogenous hypoxia. Well, let's explain the basic process of hypoxia. From atmosphere, the decrease of oxygen pressure and the external respiratory dysfunction, ventilation and diffusion. Ventilation, think about the previous picture. The green little ball, which stands for oxygen, have problem to get into the alveolar. And diffusion, difficulty from alveolar to capillary. These two situations, along with the bottom one, venous to arterial shunts, they are hypotonic hypoxia. The Hypotonic hypoxia is characterized by a decrease of partial pressure of oxygen in arteries, also called hypoxic hypoxia. What are the reasons? Decreased partial pressure of oxygen of inspired air. For example, you're in the Tibet plateau, or in the whole atmosphere, they have less oxygen level. Atmospheric hypoxia. Pay attention to the altitude and the atmosphere and the inspired air partial pressure of oxygen and the partial pressure produced by oxygen in the artery and the saturation level. The altitude, the higher the altitude is, the less atmosphere inspired air partial pressure is. And we are at this height above sea level. So we get enough or satisfactory partial pressure of oxygen in artery and saturation. And who knows the altitude of Himalaya or Everest? And what is the atmosphere over there? The height or the altitude of Everest is 8,848. So the oxygen in the air over there is very less. It's very less. So we will suffer terrible hypoxia or hypotonic hypoxia when you're at the top of the highest mountain in the world. And also there are another place in China you may suffer from this. It's in Tibet, in Lhasa. That's the Potala Palace in Lhasa. The altitude is 3,700 meters. See, it's still within the normal range, but the saturation level is less compared with normal or compared with people who are not in this high altitude plateau. And in Yellow Mountain, the altitude is 1,532. So you shouldn't feel any difficulty of getting enough oxygen to your tissue cells. This is the Himalaya. So you do need oxygen cylinders to breathe over there freely. External respiration dysfunction, we call it. As you had seen, we have 8 names for 4 types of hypoxia already. And here we get more according to the reasons. And external respiratory dysfunction can lead to respiratory hypoxia and venous arterial shunts, especially the congenital disease, which is Charlot of Fallot.